Okay, so you want to buy a mountain town. Not just a ski resort, the whole thing. The lifts, the runs, the village at the bottom, the rental shops, the overpriced hot chocolate, all of it. You're picturing yourself on the balcony of the lodge, watching the cash roll in while thousands of people pay you for the privilege of sliding down a hill you happen to own. Here's the strange part. A ski resort is one of the only businesses on Earth where your single most important raw material falls out of the sky for free on a schedule nobody can predict for roughly 5 months a year. And if it doesn't show up, there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. And yet a tiny handful of companies have turned this weather-dependent gamble into one of the most reliable money machines in North America. By the end of this video, you'll know how much a mountain actually costs, why you probably won't even own the mountain, where the money really comes from, why 2 ski passes quietly took over an entire continent, and why the snow, the thing this whole business appears to be built on, barely matters at all. Let's start with the price list, because resorts come in 3 completely different sizes, and they are 3 completely different businesses. At the bottom, you've got the local hill, a couple of rope tows or 1 tired fixed-grip chairlift, a few hundred acres, a car park full of families from the nearest town. Something like this can be picked up for $2 to $5 million. Cheap, charming, and a near-guaranteed way to lose money slowly. Hundreds of these little hills have quietly gone dark over the past few decades because they live and die on a single thing. Did it snow this year, or didn't it? In the middle, the regional resort. Real chairlifts, a proper base lodge, a few 100,000 skier visits a season. Customers driving in from a couple of states over. Budget anywhere from 50 million to a few hundred million. And then there's the destination resort. Vail, Aspen, Park City, Whistler. A real town at the bottom, an airport within reach. Customers flying in from across the planet. When Vail Resorts bought Whistler Blackcomb in 2016, the deal was worth around $1.1 billion. When it bought Park City 2 years earlier, it paid $182.5 million for the resort alone. And we'll come back to how it got that one, because it is one of the great corporate stories in this entire industry. But before you sign anything, here's the first thing nobody tells you. In the United States, you probably won't own the mountain you're buying. Well over half of American ski resorts operate on land owned by the U.S. Forest Service. The runs, the lift towers, the trees, the snow, all of it sits on public land. You lease it from the federal government under something called a special use permit, and you pay them a fee every single year, a slice of your revenue, for the right to run a business on a mountain you will never actually own. So in a lot of cases, you're not buying a mountain at all. You're buying the lifts, the buildings at the base, and a permit, and renting the most important part from the government. So where do you actually buy one? You've got 3 options. The first is to buy an existing resort, usually one the big operators don't want, or one whose owner made a mistake. And nobody ever made a more expensive mistake than the people who ran Park City. The land under Park City Mountain Resort was owned by a company called Talisker. The resort itself was operated by a company called Powder under a long-term lease. In 2011, Powder simply had to send a letter to renew that lease. They missed the deadline, a clerical slip. A piece of paper that went out late on a lease covering one of the most valuable ski mountains in America. Talisker noticed. Vail Resorts, which was already running the neighboring Canyons Resort, pounced. After a brutal court fight, Vail walked away owning Park City Mountain Resort for $182.5 million. An entire mountain lost over a late letter. The second option is to build one from scratch. This is how Vail itself was born back in 1962, carved out of empty Colorado backcountry by a former soldier who had skied the Alps during the war. Today, building a brand new resort is almost impossible. Environmental reviews, Forest Service approvals, water rights, decades of permits and lawsuits. Almost nobody has built a major new ski resort in the United States in over 30 years. The third option is the post-bankruptcy bargain, and this is where the real horror stories live. Meet Tim Blixeth. In the late 1990s, he built the Yellowstone Club in Montana, a private ski resort for billionaires and billionaires only. Membership cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just to walk in the door. The idea was genuinely brilliant. Your own private mountain, No lift queues, where the only other skiers are also billionaires. Bill Gates joined, so did plenty of others whose net worth you'd recognize. But Blixeth borrowed $375 million against the club, and according to the courts, funneled much of that money into his own pockets. In 2008, the most exclusive mountain in America filed for bankruptcy. It was eventually bought out of that bankruptcy for a fraction of what had been poured into it. A resort built specifically for billionaires, taken down by exactly the same thing that kills everyone else: too much debt. And Blixeth had company. A Canadian developer called IntraWest spent the 80s and 90s building entire mountain villages from nothing. Whistler's Village, Mont Tremblant, Steamboat. They practically invented the modern ski town as a real estate product. Then the 2008 crash arrived, the debt came due, and the whole empire had to be carved up and sold off. The lesson keeps repeating. The mountain is the easy part. The borrowing is what buries you. So let's say you've got your mountain. Congratulations. Now comes the bill for actually running it. And this is where most dreams quietly freeze to death. Start with the lifts. A modern high-speed detachable chairlift costs $3 to $5 million. A gondola can run you $10, $20, even $25 million for a single line. And these things wear out. Every few years, another lift needs replacing, and you cannot skip it because a resort with old, slow, broken-down lifts is a resort with no customers. Next, the snow. Remember, it falls for free, except when it doesn't, which is more and more often. So every serious resort now manufactures its own. Snowmaking means pumping millions of gallons of water through a web of guns and compressors. And that needs two things you pay dearly for: water rights and electricity. A big resort can burn through millions of dollars in a single season just making snow to cover the gaps that nature left behind. Then there's grooming. Those perfect lines of corduroy you see first thing in the morning don't happen by magic. A single snowcat groomer costs around $500,000, drinks diesel all night, every night, and you need a whole fleet of them. Then insurance and liability, because people die on mountains, avalanches, tree collisions, lift failures. Every serious accident is a potential lawsuit, and premiums climb every year. And then there's the problem almost nobody outside the industry talks about: the people. A resort needs lift operators, ski instructors, cooks, cleaners, ski patrollers, hundreds and hundreds of them. But here's the trap. You've built your business in a town so beautiful and so eye-wateringly expensive that the workers who run it cannot afford to live in it. In places like Aspen and Vail, a small flat can cost more than a senior nurse earns in a year. So your staff commute an hour or more each way from down the valley. That's if you can find staff at all. Resorts now spend tens of millions of dollars building dormitories for their own employees just to keep the lifts turning. You didn't just buy a business, you bought a housing crisis with a view. Put it all together: the lifts, the snowmaking, the grooming, the insurance, the staff you can't house, and a destination resort burns through a staggering amount of money just to open its doors for a season that lasts, at best, around 150 days. 5 months of revenue to cover 12 months of costs. So with all of that working against you, how does anyone actually make money? The answer is that the smart operators stopped selling skiing a long time ago. The first part of the answer is the pass. In 2008, a Vail Resorts executive named Rob Katz did something that quietly reshaped the entire industry. He launched the Epic Pass. One price, paid up front, before the season even starts, that lets you ski all of Vail's mountains all winter. Think about what that does. Vail now collects the bulk of its lift revenue in spring and summer, months before a single snowflake has fallen. The customer takes on the weather risk, not the resort. If it turns out to be a terrible snow year, well, the pass is already paid for. Vail now sells well over 2 million of these passes every year. And in 2021, it did something audacious. It cut the price of the Epic Pass by 20% to hook even more people into the system. Its great rival, Alterra Mountain Company, did the exact same thing with its Ikon Pass. Between them, these two companies and their two passes now control a huge share of skiing across North America. It's a duopoly, and it is built not on snow, but on selling you next winter before this one has even finished. Here's a detail most people miss. Alterra, the company behind the Ikon Pass, is partly owned by the Crown family of Chicago. the same family that has quietly owned the Aspen Skiing Company for decades. So, two of the biggest names in the business, supposedly rivals, trace back toward the same very wealthy, very low-profile owners. The mountains compete. The money mostly doesn't. The second part of the answer, and this is the real one, is that a ski resort is not actually a ski business. It is a real estate business with a chairlift bolted onto it. The mountain is the loss leader. Its real job is to make the land at the bottom of it worth a fortune. A ski-in, ski-out condominium, a chalet right on the piste, a flat above the village square. These sell for absurd sums precisely because there's a mountain behind them. The operator builds the lifts, runs the marketing, sells the dream, and then sells or takes a cut of the property. This is why a company will happily spend $1 billion on a mountain. They're not really buying snow, they're buying the most powerful real estate magnet ever invented. And there's a quieter third stream now too, summer. Mountain biking, alpine coasters, zip lines, hiking, weddings. Resorts have spent years learning to squeeze money out of the same lifts and the same lodges in July so that the asset isn't sitting idle for half the year. A mountain that only earns in winter is a mountain working at half capacity. So let's finally do the maths. 2 scenarios, real numbers. Scenario 1, the small hill. You buy a local resort for $3 million. In a good snow year, you might clear a couple of $100,000 in profit. In a bad snow year, you lose money and you pray. This isn't really a business. It's an expensive way to love skiing, and most of the people who own these places know it and do it anyway. Scenario 2, the destination machine. You're operating at the scale of Vail or Alterra. Vail Resorts alone pulls in close to $3 billion in revenue a year across more than 40 resorts on multiple continents. The lift tickets and the passes pay the running costs, but the real fortune, the generational, dynasty-building wealth is in the property, the lodging, and that relentless, predictable, prepaid pass money that lands in the bank whether it snows or not. And then there's the catch that hangs over the entire industry, the one thing even the smartest operator cannot lease, insure, or hand off to the customer. The climate is warming. Snow lines are creeping up the mountains. Study after study suggests that within a few decades, many lower elevation resorts simply won't have reliable winters anymore. The entire business is built on a cold that is slowly, measurably going away. The pass model can protect you against one bad year. It can do absolutely nothing for you against a bad century. So, should you buy a mountain town? If all you want is a reliable return, the honest answer is that you'd probably make more money buying shares in the companies that already own the mountains than buying a mountain yourself. But nobody buys a ski town purely for the return. They buy it for the same reason people have always wanted mountains. Because standing at the top of one you own, looking down at a whole village full of people who paid to be there, feels like winning. Just remember, the snow doesn't care whose name is on the deed. If you got something out of this one, you already know what to do. Subscribe, because next week, we're pricing out another business you've always wondered about, but never dared to cost up. And before you go, settle a debate for me down in the comments. Would you rather own a tiny local ski hill that just about breaks even on love alone, or a 1% slice of $1 billion resort empire that prints money whether it snows or not? And if you have ever paid $300 for a single day's lift ticket, drop the name of the resort below so the rest of us know exactly which mountain to avoid. See you on the next one.